he's the only fight I really want, like that I truly want, because he has all the belts. You know what I mean? After I beat Bivol, I'm gonna have, right now I have 8 titles. You know, 3 of them were interim, 3 of them world championships at super middleweight, light heavyweight. Now I got 2 of them at cruiserweight. I really want those belts. You know, I want those accolades. So that's the only thing I want right now. You know, I'm not thinking about Opetaia. I'm not thinking about none of these guys, because this is a fight I want, and it makes sense for both of us.
Undisputed, you know, he's got both belts. I got 2 belts. Like, I got the Ring magazine. Like, why wouldn't he take the fight?
Is that the plan, to fight Dmitry Bivol next? And are you guys going to reach out to make that happen after May 30th?
No, yeah, for sure. So we're already in talks with that. But, you know, first things first, we got to see how he comes out. If he comes out with any injuries, I don't think he's going to have any problems in that type of way. But that fight is definitely happening. I told you guys that's the next one, and that's exactly what we have on our radar. That's the one we're going to make happen next.
Benavidez is wrong, and he should fight Jai Opetaia, the cruiserweight champion of the whole wide world.
Top 3 fights that I want for my career, and I honestly feel like we can make it happen. The next 3 fights is me versus Dmitry Bivol, me versus Artur Beterbiev, and me versus Canelo Alvarez. You know, I think there's so much hype behind all 3 of these fights that we have to make them happen, and I think it's a possibility we can make it happen. So, you know what, at the end of the day, you know, we're going to take care of business.
David Benavidez may have made his future plans clear, but the boxing world remains divided over who should be his next opponent, fueling another intense debate.
Top 3 fights that I want for my career, and I honestly feel like we can make it happen. The next 3 fights is me versus Dmitry Bivol, me versus Artur Beterbiev, and me versus Canelo Alvarez. You know, I think there's so much hype behind all 3 of these fights that we have to make them happen, and I think it's a possibility we can make it happen. So, you know what, at the end of the day, you know, we're going to take care of business.
In addition to that, Max Kellerman weighs in and remains convinced that David Benavidez is steering away from a showdown with Jai Opetaia. He believes Opetaia has already proven himself as the Ring magazine cruiserweight champion and represents the most legitimate test available. According to Kellerman, now that Benavidez has entered the cruiserweight ranks, taking on a top champion like Opetaia is the logical step, as it would provide a clear measure of his standing and credibility in the division.
But what I'm saying is, I watch these boxers do it all the time.
No, but there's a difference
Earn
here.
the right to fight
When
me.
you come into someone else's division, who's already the Ring magazine champion, you have no leg to stand on to say they don't have, this is not legacy for me, they're not big enough yet. He's the champ of the division.
Shady actually swayed me. I see his point.
Come on now, come on, Mike.
Boxing-wise and accomplishment-wise, you are right. What Shady, I believe, is saying is Benavidez is a much bigger name. He's a much bigger attraction.
He is a bigger star, therefore he is in the driver's seat to an extent. The point is, the same argument he's using against Canelo, where he ducked Canelo, Canelo can turn around and say, no, it was business, you weren't where you needed to be yet, right?
However, David Benavidez makes it clear that his entire focus is on a showdown with Dmitry Bivol. He explains that Bivol is the one fight he truly wants because the undisputed champion holds all the belts and represents the biggest achievement available to him. Benavidez says he is not thinking about any other opponents or alternative matchups, stressing that adding Bivol's titles to his collection would be a career-defining accomplishment. For him, the fight makes perfect sense for both fighters and remains his top priority above everything else.
He's the only fight I really want, like that I truly want, because he has all the belts. You know what I mean? After I beat Bivol, I'm gonna have, right now I have 8 titles. You know, 3 of them were interim, 3 of them world championships at super middleweight, light heavyweight. Now I got 2 of them at cruiserweight. I really want those belts. You know, I want those accolades. So that's the only thing I want right now. You know, I'm not thinking about Opetaia. I'm not thinking about none of these guys, because this is a fight I want, and it makes sense for both of us.
In addition to that, Jai Opetaia says a fight with David Benavidez would be easy to make from his side. He claims he has always been ready and willing to take the fight, but keeps hearing excuses whenever the matchup is discussed. Opetaia suggests that Benavidez may choose a different route instead of pursuing the undisputed cruiserweight championship.
Benavidez, he got a good win against Artur Ramirez, who's someone you called out heavily. I know there was a little back and forth between you and David. Yeah, you're confident that potentially one day you could get that fight on?
Man, that fight's easy to make on our side. You know what I mean? I've been ready. I've been, you know, I'll just hear excuses and you know, fucking this and that, you know, Buzz. reach out. How bad do you want to fight? How bad do you want to be undisputed cruiserweight? That's an easy fight to make. You know, there's all these little excuses and stuff, but it is what it is, man. I think he's going to take a different path.
In the broader discussion, Shakur Stevenson has offered a different perspective. He argues that a potential Bivol versus Benavidez fight is actually more significant than completing the trilogy. Although he supports Benavidez, he admits he favors Bivol in this matchup, viewing his technical skill set as the most difficult challenge in the division. Stevenson also believes this fight would generate greater global interest and urgency than the ongoing heavyweight narratives. In his view, Bivol's control, timing, and boxing IQ present a far more meaningful test for Benavidez than the long-awaited trilogy fight.
You want to see a trilogy, or would you rather just see the Benavidez?
I'd rather see the Benavidez. I mean, Beterbiev deserved a trilogy technically because of the first fight. I thought Bivol won the first fight too.
Yeah, I did too.
But me, I think that Benavidez and Bivol is another fight that's one of the biggest and best fights in the sport of boxing. I don't know if it's the biggest, but one of the best as far as like competitive wise.
Who you got in there? That's a hard fight. I ain't gonna lie.
I'm leaning towards Bivol. But I know like it would be tough with Benavidez with his pressure.
However, Jose Benavidez Sr. explains that there were claims they were avoiding fights with Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, but he rejects that idea. He says they actually went to watch those fighters and were looking to face either the winner or the loser, since both are extremely dangerous. According to him, Bivol gave the belt away and did not take the fight, while Beterbiev also didn't end up accepting the matchup.
A lot of people are talking, you know, that we didn't want to fight Bivol Beterbiev. We went to see him fight. We were trying to fight the winner or the loser, because at the end of the day, there's no loser there. Both of them are very dangerous fighters. Bivol decided to give the belt away to David. You know, he didn't want to fight.
As tensions have reportedly increased after Artur Beterbiev accused David Benavidez of pulling out of a planned fight. He claims that once Benavidez's team realized he quickly agreed to the matchup, they changed direction and instead chose to face Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. According to Beterbiev, Benavidez tends to be more vocal than action-driven, despite his accomplishments in the sport. He stated, Benavidez's success as a multi-division champion, he also questioned the legitimacy of some performances, suggesting there have been ongoing concerns about his fighting style and certain victories. Jose Benavidez Sr. has further intensified the situation, insisting he has evidence that none of their targeted opponents are engaging in negotiations. He specifically points to Jai Opetaia, Dmitry Bivol, and Artur Beterbiev, claiming that attempts to reach them have gone unanswered despite ongoing public discussion. He argues that much of the buildup is happening only on social media, with little actual movement behind the scene.
He's a great fighter. He's a dangerous fighter. You want Beterbiev, Opetaia. Those are the three dangerous fighters in our careers, you know? Like I said, but right now, they're not picking up. I don't know what's happening. But also, there's an opportunity to fight the cruiserweight champion, the WBC world champion at cruiserweight. So we're here, man. Those are the four fights that we're interested in right now.
WBC champion, who's that? WBC.
You know, I forgot the name of the guy, but he's the one that fought Budo Jack.
Oh, WBC Noel McKellen.
I think so. You know, I mean, to be honest, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't even know who. I never really heard about this guy, you know, to be honest.
Chris Mannix weighs in and comments on Dmitry Bivol's decision to vacate his WBC title, outlining how the situation developed once David Benavidez became the mandatory challenger. He explains that the WBC instructed Bivol to defend his belt against Benavidez, but instead, Bivol opted to pursue other major opportunities, including a possible trilogy with Artur Beterbiev. As a result, Bivol relinquished the championship, which allowed Benavidez to be elevated to full title holder. Mannix suggests this move raises broader questions about how fighters and sanctioning bodies balance legacy fights with mandatory obligations at the elite level.
Dmitry Bivol's decision to relinquish his WBC title and move forward with a planned trilogy fight against Artur Beterbiev. David Benavidez is the mandatory challenger for Dmitry Bivol's WBC belt. The WBC came out and said, hey, you have got to fight David Benavidez. We want to keep that title. Dmitry Bivol, and apparently what was a cold letter to Mauricio Suleiman, said, I'm not going to keep that title. I am now going to be the unified champion. David Benavidez has been upgraded to full champion. What do you make of what you saw from Bivol's camp?
Sergio Mora provides another perspective, saying he would be just as intrigued to see David Benavidez take on Jai Opetaia, even though a clash with Artur Beterbiev still feels likely given the ongoing talk. He labels Beterbiev as a relentless, powerful force who could pose serious problems for Benavidez throughout the fight.
Well, listen, that was the championship I won, the WBC belt, and that was my dream to win that green belt. But nowadays, the belt has come second to the money these fighters are making. So I respect the fact that Dmitry Bivol, did that, because he's chasing the money, the legacy, and then the belt second. I feel bad for David Benavidez, who's on the sideline here, but this is what happens when you get great fights.
Despite that, Mora remains supportive of Benavidez's development, describing him as a rising Mexican star capable of headlining major events and taking over big fight nights if he continues to get the right opportunities.
But number two, I would much rather see Benavidez versus Opetaia than Beterbiev. That's just my personal opinion. Not because of the 41-year-old age, just because of the style matchup. And I just think Benavidez, even though he looks physically bigger, he's not going to be bigger than Beterbiev. Beterbiev is sledgehammers, man. This is a type of fight that could be dangerous for Benavidez. If
maybe 5 years ago, though. Like, you got to remember the age.
David Benavidez is the new Mexican star. He's taking over Canelo's dates.
And how do you stay a Mexican star?
He's going to be the future for the next 5, 6 years, 7 years.
How did Canelo become a Mexican star? Fighting the very best.
Amid all the ongoing discussions, fans continue to demand a long-anticipated showdown between Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez. Benavidez has expressed that failing to make this fight happen would be a letdown not only for him but for the sport, considering its huge competitive appeal and commercial value. He views it as one of the biggest possible matchups in boxing that has somehow not been finalized. Speaking with strong confidence, he even suggests that if the roles were reversed, he understands why Canelo might also hesitate to take the fight right away.
Bivol would fight you. I think Beterbiev would fight you. Do you believe that at this stage of his career, Canelo Alvarez would ever choose to fight you?
I mean, to be honest with you, I just feel like it's too big of a fight to leave on the table. I think, what that fight represents, two great Mexicans going at it, two great world champions, the best world champions of their era going at it. So I feel like, it has to happen, eventually. It's too big of a fight to not make happen.
Despite David Benavidez's long-held interest in facing Canelo Alvarez, that fight still hasn't materialized, with focus now shifting toward possible showdowns with Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. Benavidez acknowledges both matchups would require peak preparation, potentially making them the most demanding camps of his career. He describes Bivol as a highly technical challenge, while viewing Beterbiev as a more aggressive, explosive fighter who would test his durability, movement, and punch resistance. Even so, he remains confident in his ability to defeat both, saying these are the kinds of elite-level challenges he is actively seeking at this point in his career.
More than Beterbiev, but I think Dmitry Bivol just put the game plan out how to beat Beterbiev. But both of them, I have to be at the top of my game. Training camp has to be the hardest training camp I've ever been through to win those fights. Both of them. Either one of those dudes, bro, they're both talented. I think a more of a, how do I say it? A more like a barn burner fight would be me and Beterbiev. Right. You know what I mean?
I like those.
But
I like to see those.
Honestly, when you get with fights like that with people that got a lot of power, you gotta use movement. You know what I mean? So I think that would show a different game, a different aspect in my game. But I'm 100% confident I beat both those guys. It's not going to be easy at all, but this is what we're here for.
As all these names, opinions, and changing fight plans come together, it's clear that boxing's biggest matchups are still there, waiting to be made. From the long-awaited Canelo clash to potential wars with Bivol and Beterbiev, with Benavidez right at the center, the pressure keeps rising. Now the real question remains, who will actually answer the call when it comes? If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, And stay tuned for more fight stories that go beyond the headlines.